Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Growth Hackers Podcast, episode number 3. I'm Phil Graham.
And I'm Natalia Sanchez.
And we are super excited to be here because today we're going to talk about something that I think every entrepreneur will be able to relate to. Don't you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially me. And that is, we're going to be covering top hacks for overwhelmed entrepreneurs.
So good.
Nobody is an entrepreneur without some kind of an overwhelm.
I think, in fact, I don't know, this might call me crazy, but I feel like that's a pretty common state for entrepreneurs. I know a lot of the clients that I'm speaking with, or even just friends that I know that are in the space, there's always something going on that's got them almost there, like almost to the brink of overwhelm. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And overwhelm can come from many different reasons. You know, there's good overwhelm, there's bad overwhelm, there's overwhelm because you're too busy, which is kind of a good problem. And there's ways to fix it. There's bad overwhelm because you set yourself up for it. Like there's all these different reasons, but regardless of that, like there's different things that we can all do in order to decrease or eliminate overwhelm and make you more effective as an entrepreneur. And so, and we all need this, like I'm super busy, you're super busy. There's many times I'm overwhelmed, and so this episode is as much for us as it is for everybody out there as well, right?
I think we're finding that that's just going to be the trend. That the episodes are silently what we need as well.
Totally.
But you know what? To that note, I think it's also like last week's episode we talked about how we respond to stress, right? And or how to cope with bad days. And, one of the things that we had brought up during that episode was that it's really, we can prepare all we want, or we can try to set ourselves up so that we're managing, quote unquote, managing, the bad days. But really what I think is key ultimately is how we respond when we're in it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think, it's kind of, I think you said it last week very well, is that it's inevitable that as an entrepreneur, we're going to have bad days,
Yeah.
And so I think it's also the same thing with overwhelm, that it's inevitable that we're going to have at some point or experience at some point overwhelm. So how can we respond to it in a way that empowers us and enables us to grow, as opposed to burnout, right? Where we're just not producing at all.
Yeah, I think that's where it's at right there, is how can you, there's a sweet spot. There's going to be some overwhelm typically if you're working hard and stuff. And you want to come up against it, but not burn out. And so I've got some things I do, and I need to do more things because I am super crazy busy. Some days I feel like I don't have 10 extra seconds, and I describe it like this, business is going really well. And I feel like I'm at a blackjack table and I keep getting dealt 21s and I can't get up. That's a good kind of overwhelm, but it is still overwhelm.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can kind of catch us up, because I'd love to hear from you, where things, when did that shift happen where all of a sudden you feel like you noticed, all of a sudden you're like, the heat is generating, right? Like it's somebody turned up the gas all of a sudden, you're like, oh my gosh, momentum, we're picking up momentum. And at that point you start to feel the impact or the weight of that. What has that been like for you maybe in the last couple of weeks?
I think I can see back, and it's been a couple years that it's been building where things have been going really well. And it's been a progressive growth, which is nice. But it's just things just keep getting better and better, but there's also so much more room to grow above that as well. So I'm focused on, I want to keep getting the 21s, speaking in analogies. I want to keep getting the 21s and winning the hands and stuff, but I also want to own the casino. Those are two totally different things.
Right.
So for me, some of the interesting thing too, I talked about this on a podcast a few weeks ago, which is really interesting. So we've been having some of our best months recently, and we've been doing it by kind of going against the grain. We're not going with the herd. We're not doing a lot of things that people say you should be doing. We don't spend a lot of time on Facebook Lives or this or that. We're doing things a little bit different, and it's working really well. It's not the only way, and I like Facebook Lives. I like doing this too. So we're doing cool things like this as well. But I think a lot of times they'll get advice or see what other people are doing and kind of put themselves into a box and feel like they have to do it that way. And that's the only way to succeed. And when I discovered that, we can do it different. In fact, there's benefits of doing it different. That really helped me a lot a couple years ago. And then since then, we've just kind of taken off with it. But yes, like things are super busy, and there's a lot of overwhelm that goes with that. And I think entrepreneurs, as an entrepreneur, you have to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
Even if you have a team, like we have a team here, but there's still a lot of things I have to do. Part of that is my fault, by the way, but I'm sure other entrepreneurs can relate.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's I think that's a really great point, is that oftentimes, we feel overwhelmed because we are wearing a lot of different hats and we're trying to manage a lot of different roles. And even if we have a team, and this is actually something I've seen, especially in kind of small businesses, within a corporate structure where you have 50 plus employees, at some point you have to give up control, because you can't manage everything at that point, right? It's really impossible. But within small businesses, which is, I think, the space that we're in, and many of my clients are within that space as well, is that because the team is small enough to kind of, oversee and control, that we never quite give up that we never give that control up, really.
Yes.
Right. And so even though we think we've hired on the help, we haven't yet, what's the word that I'm looking for? We haven't yet empowered the team, or we're not fully leveraging the team to just handle it, to just run with it. Because, again, we're still learning. And I think, again, in this space, usually in small business, because we start off as solopreneurs, right? And then we grow into businesses where we start having a team, that we start learning leadership, maybe a few years after we kind of get started. And so we're trying to manage the business, manage the team, and learn leadership at the same time. And that in and of itself is overwhelming. So not only are you trying to wear different hats and you're still trying to control everything, but at the same time, you're also trying to cope with the leadership demands and how to show up better as a leader. So there's really quite a bit going on in this space when you're there. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like peeling an onion. There's so many layers to it, and there's different levels of overwhelm for each layer. It's really interesting. I thought I would share a few tips that have helped me, because yes, I'm super busy, but at the same time, like, we get everything done. We kick ass for our clients, and things are good. Things are really good right now. And there's certain things that we do and that I do that help me in order to kind of like curb the overwhelm somewhat. So I wanted to share a couple tips, and I know you have some stuff you do as well. I want to ask you about that too. So number one, this is like non-negotiable. I put myself first, and I have to work out every day. And I know you're very much the same way.
Yes.
In fact, you don't want to be around me if I can't get my workout in. It's just, I'm not a pleasant person. Like, I beat myself up mentally if I don't do it. So no matter what's going on, no matter how, and sometimes I got to tell you, like, to me, it's just like getting up. It's going to happen. It's not an option, but sometimes I'm so busy, and you've been in similar situations where it's like, I feel like, damn, I literally feel like I'm getting up from a blackjack table, getting dealt 21s, winning, and I have to go work out.
Right.
But I have to realize that going and working out, both mentally and physically, is in many ways even better than sitting at that table without getting up, getting 21s all day. Right.
I love that. And so actually, to that note, you just reminded me of a conversation I had with a client a couple weeks back, because she was just getting started into training consistently. Because, I couldn't agree more with you. Like, it's important for us to physicalize ourselves, right? In some capacity. Like, we have to, both because we want to be in shape, right? There's like that whole, just taking care of your body and trying to be in good shape and all of that. And maybe a little bit of the whole vanity thing too, like whatever, we're human beings. But it's also really important because of the chemistry of the body, right? Like, it changes the way that your brain functions. It changes the way that you're metabolizing, you're metabolizing oxygen in the body, which helps function, increase the functionality of the brain. There's so many benefits biologically and physiologically that are gained from working out consistently, and also from the power you start to feel and the confidence you start to feel within yourself. However, if people are having a hard time managing their schedules and their time, because the number one thing I hear is I just don't have the time, right? Yeah. And I'm like, look, you're busy, you're crushing it, you've got your own agency, right? And I've got my own business, and I get it. Like, it's hard sometimes to find the time, and people feel like they defeat themselves by saying, well, I can't stay consistent because I can't wake up every morning at 6:30 and get my workout in. And what I say is, it doesn't matter when you get your workout in, right. Just get it in.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I think that, to your point, it's like, I think one of the things that helps or has helped me is that I do a good job at planning everything out, but I give myself permission to move things around in the event that I need to. So let's just say my intention was to train early this morning at 9 a.m. or, sometimes I go in at 7 a.m. whenever I go in, but I couldn't, for whatever reason, get to it. Then I say, okay, when can I go in? Yeah. And what I do instead is I give myself a bare minimum to hit every week. And that bare minimum is 5. Like, I have to train 5 times a week. Doesn't matter like how I get about to do it. Right. But at least I'm committing to doing it 5 times. So I think that helps, instead of confining ourselves to the actual like time in which we're doing it, is like at least just saying, okay, I've got 5 days, whatever 5 days and whatever times work, I'll just make sure I get it done.
Yeah, I totally agree 100%. The key is just getting it done. It doesn't matter if it's 6 a.m., 6 p.m. or 11 p.m.,
Yeah.
Get it done. And I think a lot of times it's kind of like in sales. If somebody says they can't afford it, that's usually not true. There's exceptions, but usually it's not true. And a lot of times when people say they don't have time, what they're just saying is really it's not a priority.
Yes. Right.
Because if I said to them, if this were true, I said, well, if you did this for 1 year, at the end of that year, you get $100 million for doing it. Would you just say, sorry, I can't have time. I can't do it. Like, everybody would find a way to do it no matter what. And so it's priorities. One of the things we did was there's these amazing spin classes. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Peloton. It's really cool. So we got the spin bike. And so a lot of times, like, if I want a second workout and I really just can't find the time to get back to the gym that day, like, I can literally stop what I'm doing and go get a spin workout in for 20, 30, 40 minutes, whatever the time is.
Yeah.
And so, like, whether you're working out at home or going outside and working out, however you get it, it doesn't matter. Just set yourself up for success, put yourself first, and work out on a regular basis. And like you said, there's mental benefits, physical benefits. It helps clear your mind. It makes you more effective when you're working. Yeah. Like, I would say, back to the analogy, I would say it makes me make better decisions. So I'm back at that blackjack table. When I get back, I'm like making better decisions on things, And so it helps you in so many ways. So always put yourself first. Some entrepreneurs will like drive themselves into the ground, literally working 18 hours a day. And they're not taking that time out to do some kind of physical activity or whatever. And no, you shouldn't be living like, you don't have to live like that. You can be successful without that.
Right. Absolutely. I love it. Such a great point. So one of the things, and to that note, I think when it comes to managing our time, we talked about this, like, time management is like, everybody struggles with that. But I think that what's important, especially as we start to become more successful and we start to get busier, is recognizing the difference between urgent and important.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times what we're doing is we catch ourselves, we end up spending a lot of time in this reactionary phase where we're just thinking, we think everything is urgent, right? And we're trying to put out fires, and we almost like overemphasize the importance of things, right? And then what we end up doing is neglecting the important things. Yep. And so I think that there's 2 ways to go about this. And in one sense, you want to identify, like, is the thing that's quote unquote urgent, is that thing absolutely going to impact the future of your business, right? If you don't respond to it right away, or is it something that absolutely needs to be dealt with, right? And I would just rate that on a scale of 1 to 5. How is this going to impact the long-term success of my and longevity of my business, right? Yeah. And if it's a 1, like, and this is, I'm talking about like things like emails, right? Or even people like when, customer satisfaction is incredibly important, but when you get like, people that are, when we start start feeling like we have to respond immediately to every single email that we get, we've kind of lost it, right? You know what I mean? So it's
that's a losing game.
Yeah, exactly. So it's creating time to respond instead of react, right? And managing your time effectively and focusing more on the important things instead of just on the things that are urgent. And that's when you want to leverage your team. And if you have a team, like let them deal with those little tedious things that can be dealt with that don't take up that won't take up your bandwidth, right? And don't really need you. And then the other thing that I would say is, I guess I shouldn't swear on here, but you want to have like an F it bucket, right? Like you have to be able
What's that? What is the F stand
for? We haven't talked about whether we could swear on the show or not.
Yeah, I don't even know if we can. Can we? Or will we get banned from YouTube? I don't know. Or in iTunes.
Yeah, right. But you have to be able to say no when it's time to give something up, or to just say, you know what, this is not something that I should be giving my attention to at all. Or if it's a project or something that you're doing that ultimately needs to wait. And so I would say just being generating a sense of hyper awareness around, again, making sure that what you're giving your attention to is the top priority of what needs to be focused on for the success and growth of your business. And if you're inundating your to-do list with things that aren't really that important and can be put off, or just don't even need to be there, get rid of it. Right. And really just like cleaning up that schedule. Cause I think what happens is, and I was in this space just a couple weeks ago where I love to be a yes man. You know what I mean? Like I love to say, yeah, this project and that project and this, and I'm going to do this too. And I can't wait to launch this idea. And then next thing you know, like I'm not getting anything done because I'm literally trying to move full force in every direction. There's only so much energy that we have to give and so much focus that we can give to any particular set of things. And so again, it's just really identifying like, where is it most important for me to put my attention right now? And what else can I put on the back burner? And what else am I just going to throw away? You know what I mean? Yeah,
I love all that. I totally agree. That actually goes right into my next tip, like really perfectly. But before I jump into that, I actually you were talking about like responding to clients and customers and stuff. And you said something great about like having the time to, respond within a day or whatever the case may be. And also I would say one thing to help curb that overwhelm is to set your expectations properly with the clients and customers. Like, that's what I do, because for me, I will typically respond within 24 hours of an email to a client. If it's not a client, it might be longer, it may not, we'll see. But if it's a client, they're a paying client, they're going to get a response within 24 hours. But if we don't set that expectation, some clients are like, well, I emailed you 2 hours ago and I haven't gotten a response. Like, I'll tell you what, like when I get fast responses from people, that's a warning sign, because like that shows me that sometimes they're reacting, and you don't want to be in reactive mode all the time. And if you're always feeling like you have to respond quickly, and it's human nature, like I think we're all pulled to like check our email and check messages and respond. And, I've done it plenty of times myself.
Totally.
But I stopped doing that for the most part because I figured out that that's not the best use of my time, always being reactive. I want to be proactive. And I feel like we have the best service literally possible because we care and we're really like engaged with our clients. Like, and that makes a big difference because it's not just a client. So a lot of them become friends.
Yeah. Right.
And it's so much better that way. Anyway, but if you set those expectations for responses and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think that, to that note too, it's like, it's good to develop such a strong relationship where it does feel like a friendship, but you also want to have boundaries, right? And this is, I think what you're talking about is that when you set the expectation prior to, you can uphold those boundaries no matter how the relationship ends up evolving.
Yes.
And the other thing that I want to say is that to make things easier for yourself, not only are you setting expectations in the beginning, but you can automate some of it too, right? So where, you just set up like an auto responder and say, hey, thank you so much for your email. I will usually respond back within 2 days to 24 hours, whatever it is, right? Thank you so much for your patience. If this is urgent, please, send this to whatever, right?
Yeah,
And
there's always
so
exceptions. Yeah.
yeah. But at least then, you've taken the burden off of yourself, and then you've also communicated to them, like, I'm right now, this is the best I can do in terms of responding. I'll try to get to you as soon as possible, but typically 24 hours to 2 days is about the wait time. So, I mean, at least then they know, and that calms them down and it calms you down. So you feel like at least they know, I've communicated it. And again, you could just put that on auto response and everything's good, So there's ways to set up systems around this too. And I think setting up systems to help cope with overwhelm is hugely important.
Yep. And I always tell, like, you really don't want somebody, like if you're hiring somebody, let's say you're hiring somebody to do your ads or something, like, we do marketing and ads for people. You really don't want somebody that's going to get back to you every 10 seconds, because that means they're probably not doing much.
Right.
Like you don't want that as a client either. Trust me.
Yeah.
So my next tip, you guys, is it goes right. You kind of said it. So like we're totally thinking along the same lines here, but it's focusing on the stuff that actually moves the needle and makes the difference. And you described it really well. But to me, I do that a lot. Like I try, and I'm not perfect at it by any stretch, but I try and focus on the things that are going to make the most difference. And I get rid of the rest. Like I'm not big on like posting what I had for lunch on social media. And I don't like troll groups all day. I don't have time to do it.
Yeah.
And no offense to anybody that does that. If you like it, go for it. Like it's fine. But if that is not the best way to serve your business and you want to make more money and stuff, there's better ways. And when you focus on the stuff that's actually going to like move the needle and be a game changer, like when you create a system, whether it's for yourself or we also work on this for our clients, like how can we create something great for a client today? Instead of like, let's go do these random posts, like what can we do to change a client's life today? Like we focus on stuff like that.
Yeah.
And to me, I feel like that's been a game changer for us, because like we don't worry about vanity metrics, likes, comments, shares. We don't worry about all the noise out there. My other tip here, I'll just throw it out, is I don't watch the news.
Oh yeah.
And like there was stuff going on last week, or it might have even been this week, with like people testifying. Like I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like I do try and keep up on most things, but a lot of it I just don't have the time, or I just don't want to keep up on a lot of the crazy news. You know what I mean?
No, I love that. And I think you're bringing up such a great point, because I think when it comes to overwhelm, so same thing when you're having a bad day, you're kind of already in the midst of it, right? But when you're dealing with overwhelm tends to be something that builds up over time.
Yeah.
And I think the way to manage that the best, or maybe hack overwhelm, is to be incredibly protective of where you're placing your attention. And I think that just goes to your point about like not absorbing anything. I don't want to say anything, but trying your best not to absorb things that will put you in a negative space, or that will consume you in terms of your attention, time, or energy. Because the thing is, and I'm going to use this example. I had an interview with a woman last week who was spending a lot of time watching, what was going on with these, with the court hearings and all of that. And it emotionally rocked her to where the day that we were supposed to have the interview, she just she felt out of it, right? Like, cause she was so emotionally overwhelmed with what was going on. And she's not the only person who I know is impacted by this. Like I have a close friend of mine who's like on Twitter all day long, and she gets so irritated because of what she's seeing on Twitter, but she's so consumed by it, because what happens is once you give your attention to that thing, right, your brain wants to find the solution, right? And if it's energetically consuming you because of the drama and there's no solution in sight, your brain is just going to continue to wait and want to absorb more and more and more, because it wants to know what the outcome is going to be, right? Which ends up, again, not only taking your attention away from what's really important, but also, again, energetically disrupting you, so that it's building anxiety, it's building stress, it's putting you in an emotional place that you are now putting that energy and emotion into everything else that you do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So you might not even be overwhelmed in a general sense, but because something else rocked you emotionally, now you're taking those emotions and putting them into your work. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't feel good. And it's like, well, maybe it's because you did something that put you in that place. So really be mindful and really be protective of your attention.
I love that. There's a reason I don't think I've said this before, But there's a reason why LeBron James, he calls it zero dark 30. He goes zero dark 30 when the playoffs hit. You know what that means? He gets off social media.
Wow.
He goes, when it's time for the playoffs, he literally does not look at his social media.
I love that.
It's too much noise.
Right.
You know why? It's because like the playoffs for NBA players, that's the most important for their career.
Right.
That's the most important time. They have to be 1000%. It's mentally and physically grueling. And so he calls it zero dark 30. Every year when he hits the playoffs, he does a post, zero dark 30. See you guys after the playoffs.
Wow.
And now I'm not saying don't go on social media, but what I am saying is don't let that stuff consume you.
Yes.
And I'm saying create 1,000 times more than you consume. A lot of people go on to consume.
Yes.
But if you're a business, if you're an entrepreneur, you should be creating and also building relationships and stuff, and then consuming less. You know, if you want to move the needle and really, and these are things that like not a lot of people do these things because like Facebook and Twitter and all these social media sites, they don't want that. They want you on their sites all day.
Right.
That's how they make their money.
and well, that's exactly right. Is that most people just don't know that the websites themselves, like the algorithms are designed to keep you hooked.
Totally.
Because that's how they make money, right?
Yep.
So we're consuming a platform that's free for us for the most part, right? But it's designed to keep our attention so that they can make money through their advertisements.
Yep.
So it's literally designed to try and keep us hooked in as long as possible. So knowing that, now that we have conscious awareness around that, we have to literally say, okay, this is how I'm going to use this. And I love that you just brought that up because this is one of the, I have this conversation with my clients all the time because they're spending a lot of time on Facebook or social media because they think that this is branding themselves, but it's like, look, it's not just you being on, it's you creating content. So if you're not creating content and you're just on and for the sake of engaging with other people, that's like being at lunch on recess. Like you're not, like you're not really like in the classroom, like learning anything or doing anything, producing anything. You're just literally on recess like the whole time. So, and it takes up a lot of, literally, if people were to set a timer, and I would encourage our listeners to try this, go on Facebook, and as soon as you do, set a timer and just
in fact, if you have an iPhone, it even has that now. It's called screen time. You can, it'll be scary. Look up your screen time. If you have iOS 12, it'll tell you how much time you're spending on the different social media sites.
Yeah. So like, see how much time you're spending and wasting on there. And so my next hack would be, you want to make sure that you're spending, when you're in overwhelm, I want to say, take an inventory of your revenue producing activities. So oftentimes, again, something like social media, we start feeling overwhelmed because we're placing our attention in certain areas that are consuming our attention, but literally not producing anything for us in terms of outcome. So identify, like, throughout the week, where, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, where am I really placing my attention? And to those places that I'm giving my attention, which of those things are producing income or revenue for me? And if the majority of them aren't, then you need to reassess where you're placing your energy and your attention, right? So revenue producing or income producing activities, right?
Yeah, 1,000% agree. I think a lot of people kid themselves into thinking that the social media, the overuse of social media is revenue producing. And yes, you can create revenue doing it, but is that the best use of your time? For most people, it's going to be a big fat no, because you can't scale it. You can't count on it. It's not a system. It's like, if you want to build a business or grow a business, just like Mark Cuban says, you have to have a systematized, scalable way that always can bring in leads and customers. And just posting generically on social media all the time is not it. You can't count on it. You can't scale it. You can't systematize it. So we're not saying don't do that, but we're saying, like, be aware of how you spend your time and just use it in a smart way. I would probably think 99% of the people overuse it. They put way too much benefit and time into just posting whatever all the time, when they could be creating stuff that could change their lives, and change their business and change their family forever.
Right. And to
so
that
be
note,
smart.
Yeah, you're so right. And to that note, for anybody out there that is using, most people just aren't skilled enough to know how to even go about leveraging social media correctly.
Yeah.
And on top of that, what the only thing I would say, the one thing that you should be focused on the most in social media is building real relationships.
I was just gonna say,
So
I was just say relationships. I knew
yeah,
you were gonna say
yeah.
we both think so much alike. I
Yeah, I know. I love
totally agree.
it. One day we'll disagree, I'm sure, but like,
I know, and that will be fun. We will
it
that'll be a good show. Whatever that topic will be, I don't know, but we'll see.
yeah. Like whether we landed on the moon or not or something.
Yeah, it'll be
No, I'm just
something
kidding.
crazy.
But no,
No, we can talk politics, religion. Let's just, let's
yeah,
just blow it all out of the water, and
seriously.
that would be interesting.
Yeah. But
Sorry,
no,
go ahead.
but yeah, so I think it's important, like, we can finish talking about social media, but I just do want to say this, that if you're on social media and you're using that as a means to build your business and generate leads, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Like, and I don't think that's what Phil is saying either. But what I will say is that if you're not actually building real relationships with people and all the time you're spending on social media, you're doing it wrong. And so if this is going to sound really weird, but if you're not sliding in the DM, like, you're not getting anywhere. So like literally all the connections that I'm making, all the authentic, real, and impactful connections and leads, so to speak, that I've made on Facebook, I've literally built through Messenger. So, and if you're not in the Messenger, like if you're not connecting with them outside of your news feed, then you're doing it wrong. And the next step to a successful relationship using social media from Messenger is to get on the phone with them. So if you're not connecting on the phone with these people, then it's almost just becomes irrelevant. People forget about you in an instant. That's how fast. I mean, Gary Vee talks about this. He's like, look at how fast even the most famous people stay on our news feeds after they die. Like, it's literally maybe 2-3 days max.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
So like for us who are really relatively nobody, you know what I mean? Like, we are forgotten about in an instant. So you want to make sure that you're building very meaningful connections with people. And the only way to do that is actually contacting them. So
yeah, I totally agree. I feel like we need to have a show and
we
title it how to slide into their DMs.
Yeah, seriously, we should.
and then we have a little subtitle, like, get out of that dirty mind. We're talking about business, stuff like that. It'd be cool. But I totally agree. Same thing with Instagram or Twitter, wherever you're at. Like, there's not like one social media thing that's better than, they're all good.
Right.
But I totally agree. Like, building relationships, not just posting crap or consuming crap or trolling for customers and stuff, like building relationships. That's my favorite use of Facebook and Instagram and stuff. Like, that's how we
connected.
Yeah, that's how we met. We've met like a lot of great people that way. To me, that's my 100% favorite use of it. And that's where the value is for customer acquisition, for building a business. Yes, you can use Facebook and Instagram for that stuff organically, but I think the best use of your time is way by far better creating systems that will consistently framework, bring people in through ads, through other methods on Facebook and Instagram and stuff.
Yes.
So
exactly.
I'm with you. Relationships is where it's all at.
Yeah.
And too many times I think entrepreneurs focus on, there's just so much to focus on. Like, it's not your guys' fault. Like, oh my gosh, should you do a podcast? Should you do a YouTube video or a Twitter post, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, SEO, content marketing, organic? Like, I could literally go on and on, know, not to mention just the day-to-day running the business plus family and everything else. So it is overwhelming. So I think just realize that that's normal and you can do something about it. And your reality does not have to be like everyone else's. You can create your reality and not be overwhelmed or be less overwhelmed, and even like learn to kind of enjoy it. Like, I like when I'm busy. If I have nothing to do and stuff, like, I would hate that.
Well, and that creates another sense of overwhelm, right?
Yeah,
like when you're
true.
not producing, or when you're not as successful as you want to be, or when you're not hitting your targets, like that also creates overwhelm.
Yep.
And so maybe that's we can actually maybe have a part 2 of how to deal with the overwhelm of lack of production, or, of really not seeing success. But I do have one more tip. So if you're seeing momentum in your business, and you're seeing growth in your business, and because of that, like, it's almost like all of a sudden you've just hit stride, and now you're rapidly creating momentum, right? That comes with its own overwhelm and a greater sense of responsibility to the work and to the business, to the production. systems are your best friend. So what you want to do though is create the systems before you start catching your stride. And the reason why this is important is because most people invest in systems or invest in teams once they need them. And what happens is then you're actually literally adding more work and stress to your life, because now you're not only having to deal with the demand of the work and the higher level of stress, but now you're implementing something new into your business during that time, which is it always creates the sense of anxiety and desperation, right? And so instead, think ahead. And I want to encourage this, like my entrepreneur friends, think ahead, think ahead, think ahead. Okay? Like if you want to build, and I think you were talking about this not too long ago about, what was that, the Walmart book?
Oh, the Sam Walton book?
Yeah. I don't know. I forget what it's called. I feel like this was the book you're talking about, but it's like, basically, if you have a vision for how you want the company to look like or where you're going with it, you want to start implementing the very things now that you would actually need once you get to that level.
That's what, Sam Walton essentially was like, well, when he had a couple stores, he was like, unless this can work for 1,000 stores, we're not going to implement this, because he knew where he wanted to go.
Yes, exactly. So start thinking now about where you're projected to grow into, and look into getting those systems and implementing those systems now. You don't necessarily have to hire out the teams, because that's, usually that is like an investment in a greater investment, but you can hire somebody to integrate systems for you that will help create scalability and will help manage the growth once you're there, so that you don't feel as overwhelmed, and the systems are already there in place to help facilitate that growth as well. So I just really want to highly consider, I know I referred you to Gina, but there's online business managers out there, virtual assistants, find somebody that can help integrate these systems into your business now before you get to that point, so you're set up and ready to rock once you're there.
Yeah, totally agree. I think if you guys do that, and it's kind of scary at first, but when you think about it, it's smart. Like you're looking ahead and you see where you want to go, and you put systems in place before you need them, or at least, kind of put them in place. And when you do that, like, you're a real business, you're like doing it right, versus a lot of people are just kind of like, they're reacting all the time. Everything's reactive.
Totally.
If I could say one thing, it's be proactive. Just be proactive with everything. That alone will help. But I think we gave like a ton of value on this.
Totally. On that point of being, oh my God, I just have one more thing. Reactive and planning ahead, and this is it. So this is kind of more of like I want to say a meta idea, a meta concept, is that when you do take the opportunity to invest, even again, if it's before you've gotten to that level, right? It actually reaffirms subconsciously that you expect that growth anyway.
Ooh, yes.
Right. And and it holds you accountable to that, because once you've got the system in place, right? Once you've invested whatever it is that you're investing in, right? And when it comes to systems, especially, you're like, okay, well, I have now the expectation that not only am I doing this, but I'm going to be really successful at it. And so it just kind of confirms into your mind and your subconscious, like, all right, we're going to go, this is going to take off. Right. And so you have that extra initiative, that extra incentive, that extra motivation and accountability as well. And you're kind of, again, fully integrating the expectation that you're going to make it big. Right. So might as well, like, why not? Why wouldn't you want to take that extra step to say, I believe in myself that I will need this, because that's how successful I'm going to become.
Can I give a quick football analogy?
Yeah.
Okay. So I love football.
I love your sports analogy.
And I just thought of this literally on the fly. So it's kind of like, if you guys don't know what salary caps are and stuff, I apologize. But like, football teams have certain caps they can't go over to pay players. And it's kind of like, if you're a team and you like, next season there's going to be a free agent, or it could be basketball. Let's say basketball, like with LeBron James, he just went from Cleveland to the Lakers. So like a year ago, the Lakers had their sights on LeBron. They knew he was going to be a free agent at the end of the season. And so they did things in a certain way to where a year in advance, they got rid of certain players and restructured contracts so that they could make a run and try and get LeBron. So they put those in place, even though they didn't get him until a year later. Like, they had to but had they not put that stuff in place way in advance, because of the salary cap, they never could have gotten him. So they planned, they They did some work in advance. And when time was right, when he became a free agent at the end of the season, boom, they got him. Yeah. Now he's on the Lakers, best player in basketball. And that's like, that's a perfect example for like putting something into action now, even though you might not have that be a reality for a month, a year, or whatever the time frame is.
Yeah. Think ahead, right? Like it's so totally. Good. I love that. That's like, first of all, it was just like I couldn't have gotten more perfect than that. Right.
Yeah.
You know, and
unless we had LeBron like pop in on the show, like right now,
I know, like walk behind you and be like, what's up?
Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
LeBron, I'll be back. You know, we'll deal with your contract in a minute. Hold on. I'm on a show, LeBron. Come on, bro.
Jeez.
These clients, LeBron, I'll get back to you in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I love it. Yeah.
Okay, people are going to think we're crazy, but we're having fun with it, right?
No,
if you can't have fun, don't do it.
Absolutely. And I just love that. Again, couldn't have been a bit more perfect analogy. Think ahead, think for the win, right? Like in a world of entrepreneurs, shoot for LeBron James.
Yeah.
That's it, right? Like,
always.
Let's go, always. So I thought that was great. I mean, again, tons of value. Like,
yeah, these shows are fun. We're like, they help us, they help hopefully you guys. And we're just going to keep bringing the fire every week.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you swore. No, I don't think hell's a swear word. So
well, no.
we'll find out. You guys, should we swear on show? Let us know.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching and listening. We really appreciate your attention. We'll be back next week with another episode. In the meantime, make sure you guys check out, what is our email? Let's have them email us with questions or topic suggestions or anything like that.
Yes. So you guys can contact us, email us at growthhackerspodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook at the Growth Hackers Podcast, and you can, like our page. And for those of you guys tuning in, like, please share your comments about these topics below. If you guys have any topics that you want us to cover, please let us know. Also, like and subscribe and share this out if this is bringing you value. We know, we would greatly appreciate this. And lastly, if you guys are really loving this content and you would like to support Phil and I along our journey, you can always feel free to donate. We have our PayPal link down below, just throwing that out there. Anything helps so we can continue to offer you guys quality content. And lastly, if you guys have any questions about working with us or would like to pick our brains more about what we do and how we do it and how we can serve and support you in your business, don't hesitate to reach out. That's literally the passion of and purpose of why we're doing this and why we want to be here.
Definitely. Send us a Bentley or give us a message. Either one.
Like, look, don't go over the top. Bentley will do,
No need for anything, too extravagant. It's all good.
Yeah. We can save the Lambo for next year.
Yeah, exactly. Right? We'll build the garage for it now. We'll walk our talk, and then if you guys send that over, that'd be great. So you guys, thank you so much. We will see you next week.
Awesome, guys. Bye.
Peace out.